So basically, I've been thinking, and this is like a second half of the video if you didn't notice the cut difference. Apparently when your memory card's full, it's full. This screw idea here, I've been thinking about it since I tried to get enough space on my memory card to keep going here, but I do think that this would be still a good platform. I had thought I should chuck this in here to show kind of how the clearances work out. If you look in there, you can see, I mean, it's a snuggish fit. One of the things I want to say I did try, or maybe I didn't come up with a good idea on it, but I had wondered about if you even got two meat grinders and basically conjoined them, so that you had like a primary squeeze and then a secondary squeeze, and that way, and like with these passages on the, oh shoot, I'm dropping things. With these internal grooves here, I mean, they're relatively substantial. So I guess what I was thinking on these is if you drilled through from the outside in, you wouldn't have to put a lot of holes. And you could even maybe come up with a screen then for, depending on, like if you wanted oil, you could put a fairly fine screen, jam it in here, and use the casing more to support it, so you could get away with a lighter grade screen for the pressing. And then you could maybe go with a little heavier screen, say if you were just doing some tomatoes quick to make tomato paste or what have you, where a little bit more solid doesn't make such a difference. So that was kind of some rethinking I had on that. Like I say, I like the idea that they do have screws made, they're cast, kind of a funny grade of cast. I've welded them up and it sort of sticks. I think, I mean, if you look at this one here, how black it is, I basically had it just smoking hot as I could get it with my propane torch before I welded it, which maybe I'll do something on welding cast one day. It's not really a real science or art or anything. It's just kind of get lucky and get the right grade, and you can make stuff stick, basically. I guess the other, I mean, if you had the facility to machine something, that would be the ultimate. But as far as revamping, now I'm going to show you some. I was thinking through a way to feed this, because one of the things, say, sunflower, I know for sure if you feed sunflower too fast and want to run it through a meat grinder thinking you're going to grind it up for feed or to squeeze out, because you'll often get a drip of oil that'll come out, and then if you make a little drip tray, and I mean, you're going to get a little bit of debris just running it straight through a meat grinder the way it sits. Out, you'll get more of the dry material. In, you're like right directly at the base here, you're going to get a drip of the oils. So you can collect some of the oils from the sunflower. You still got enough oil to make kind of a solid waxy pellet thing. I use that for feed because it's high in protein, and it does have a lot of the oil still in it. But you could say, as a byproduct of making your sunflower feed for your pigs or your chickens, you could basically steal off some of that oil and maybe run a diesel or something, or cook with it or whatever. And the other thing that you do have to watch, which I'm about to get into a little bit, is the gearing as well. If you watch my other meat grinder video where it's got the variable power supply on the DC motor, the big thing with it is I could slow it down, because whatever it is with meat, it almost acts as if once you start to crank too fast, it cavitates. So it's basically not actually processing anything at that point. It's kind of just all sitting there because it's spinning too fast to kind of catch traction and keep coming through the flighting. So with that said, feed rate, speed overall are two things I've noticed with grain. Sunflower, you go too fast, you create so much heat, you basically will make a solid mass. And I've had it before where I was running a meat grinder, running sunflower. It got a bit warm. It was getting too hard to turn because I guess I was feeding it too fast and I was turning it too fast. And for whatever reason, it was getting late or whatever, and I shut it off and went to bed and came out in the morning, and I basically had to hammer the thing apart. And then I had to use a chisel to clean it. It was just, that stuff got so hard. So those are those thoughts. Now, as far as feeding and gearing, I'm not an artist, okay? So, and I can't write very neat, especially when I'm just like working on my bench. If I can set this here. Here we got like the main hopper, because part of what I'm thinking, like some of the complaint was to make juice, for instance, you put them in a steamer unit, like what I have a video on making grape juice with a steamer, a juice extractor. It does take a while. So say you wanted to just speed this up, or else at least make it so you don't have to man it. You can make a great big hopper up here. And then I've got these kind of labeled as, crushed feed rollers. So if you were running grapes, this would actually indicate your speed of feeding, so you don't overfeed your press. With apples, it would crush them or break them down at least to fit down into the secondary hopper here. And this black line with the little arrows, if you can see them, that's like if this is your screw and you run a chain up and around and around and around. Because I had to kind of think about how to get those rollers to turn the right direction. So up here's an idler pulley, and then this is your drive or driven or whatever. And so I made a note here, like a 2-to-1. I was kind of guessing would be a decent starting ratio. So if you're getting one turn on these rollers, you're getting 2 turns on this. I mean, it's something that you maybe could add a little more science into. This was just like gut feeling, just kind of doodling out how to route things and whatever. So I don't know if this makes sense. You could pile up your main feed hopper with, say, a bushel or 2 of apples, fire this unit up. Once it's set up, basically, except for emptying the juice and the dry material, you can walk away. So really, if you had a big enough container on the dry and on the juice, and you put a couple of bushels of apples, you could be working away at something else. Well, this is just kind of doing its thing. And I think like something like apples, you'd actually be able to run it at a reasonable speed. It's like I said before, even with my tomato and whatever juicer screw press here, if I hit, because it's hand crank, but if I get ambitious and think I'm going to crank it faster to get more done, I'm wrong. And I've proven that to myself a few times. It's all about this kind of just steady turn, because everything has to be able to feed through, and it's only kind of made to work at a certain speed. So, I mean, this could be set up multiple different ways. This was just kind of a quick draw through I had. The ratio, it may not be right, and maybe it would be different for different materials. In fact, maybe if you're only turning these once for every 2 of this and you're running apples, maybe they're not crushing up fast enough. So maybe then you go to more of like a 1-to-1 or something. But that's stuff that either you need to talk to somebody that's tried to build something like this. This was kind of my dream design for my feed mill and my sunflower crusher, because I always wanted to make sunflower pellets. Actually, it was one of my dreams to burn, because the seed on its own tends to be a little bit fussy and irregular. And anyway, I won't get into that. So that's that. I'm going to make this video 3, I guess, and I will put links to the meat grinder video, and I'm going to try to link back to number 1, which is just a review of this machine, which is my kitchen screw press. And we got the meat grinder idea to use as a platform because it's stronger. Being all metal, it doesn't have this plastic screw. because when you get into some of the harder materials, especially like the oil seeds, then you really need to have the strength there, and you need to have the control to be able to get the speeds right, so you're getting oil without burning everything, because especially the sunflower and stuff will heat up and become a solid mass, and you'll have nothing but a headache. So that's that. Questions, comments. If you've tried something like this before, I'd be really curious to hear what you came up with. I mean, yeah, if you've got a machine shop and you want to go ahead and custom build a whole bunch of stuff, that's awesome. And if you've got unlimited funds, that's great. But I don't. So if I'm going to build something like this, I'm basically finding junk and retrofitting it, and then I'm going to go from there. And I know something like the screens, because I even wondered about not coning the flighting. If you were going to say make your own screw, if you left it straight, when it comes to the screening, you'd be able to come up with different screens more, say cheaply. If you don't have to say cone them out like this for a screen, and keep it strong enough that you're not going to break it because of the pressures that build up. That's a consideration, because there is some pretty decent pressures. I mean, your tomatoes and your softer things, tomatoes and apples and grapes and whatever, they put a bit of pressure on. But if you wanted to get into something that you could do oil seed, that's where if you had something, say, like that could back up your screen, you could get away with something a little bit thinner like this. Or you need to be making and coming up with really heavy-duty, substantial screens. And that's where maybe just using the flighting to create your crushing motion and trying to keep this a little more just straight, like a straight tube of whatever, and maybe you could make it out of something like a 1/2 inch or through 1-inch pipe and drill it to whatever drill holes you need. But anyway, that's some thoughts and ideas I've had over time. I've built a few things. I've done the meat grinding. We use this one regularly. I've crushed a few things. This is my dream feeder. I've ran a lot of different systems using troughs and oscillators and all sorts of different hopper style feeders to get my grain to run in when I had my mill going to make chick feed, to try to get things to feed at the right rate. Because if it's not feeding at the right rate, something jams up inevitably. If you're not standing there watching it at that point, then you have trouble. Something like this idea here, where it's a definite metered feed rate, then you could walk away. And most of what I was doing was utilizing gravity and some sort of an angle, and it would snag up on a piece of whatever, say a big flat piece of corn, and you would just have a massive mess, and it was just not pretty. So, yeah, like I say, let me know what you think. I'm curious if anybody else has done stuff like this, what they've come up with. And, yeah, maybe say if you did go and you saw this video first and you were going to go look at a sunflower press, which we talked about, and you had a chance to shoot a couple of pictures or a little video or something, send it to me, and I'll, you can put it on your channel, but I put it up on mine too. Okay, ciao.